Hello everyone and welcome back to the SteemTrail Gaming News. Today is the 17th October of 2018. My name is Kralizec and I will be your host for this evening. And today's going to be a fun episode because we're going to be talking about politics in video games. Yes, you heard me right. Me who's been trying to avoid these topics by any means necessary because, let's face it, this will piss off pretty much any side I'm going to talk about because I'm going to be right there straight in the middle. But today, one of the employees who works for Ubisoft Massive, who is actually the COO, Alf Condelius, was talking in a panel at a Sweden game conference. And he said, we cannot be openly political in our games because doing so is bad for business. And you know what? I disagree with him. I think politics do have their place in video games. And now, please, before you go and comment like, oh, we do not want politics in our games, wait a moment. Give me a second to explain. Because I think I have a point. There are some games where politics are reasonable and even necessary. But then there are games in which politics can appear, but they need to appear very, very carefully. So before I go into my opinion a bit more, Mr. Condelius talked a bit more about The Division. He said, for example, in The Division, it's a dystopian future and there's a lot of interpretation that it's something that we see the current society moving towards. But it's not. It's a fantasy. It's a universe and world that we've created for people to explore how to be a good person in a slowly decaying world. But people like to put politics into that. And we back away from those interpretations as much as we can because we don't want to take a stance in current politics. And I think that is the important caveat. Current politics should probably not be attempted to be interpreted by studios producing AAA games. And I'm going to give you guys an example that is outside of gaming. Let's talk movies and TV shows. You can very easily look at many mainstream and very popular shows and see your own politics in there if you wish to. But very often the other side can do the same thing and both sides can say, look at that. Those are the good characters in that show and they represent my views. But a TV show shouldn't probably directly come out and say, let's not kill the whales, because that is a political stance. And while this one is largely neutral, and I think the vast majority of people will agree on this one, and I know it's a bad example, but just bear with me. Let's say 50% of the people would be very heavily for killing whales, and 50% would be very adamantly against it. Then it would probably not be a great idea to come out and say, save the whales, because then you would be alienating 50% of your potential market. But I do believe that there are, especially when it comes to indie games, that there is a spot where political games can very easily exist. But when it comes to big games, Ubisoft and Mr. Alf Condelius is probably right. This is not the place for political stances. This is a product that is meant to sell to as many people as possible. It's similar to, let's say, here in Europe, we have a show that's called Dancing with the Stars. I think it's called that way. And it's a show that your average guy watches. The guy who, yeah, he probably votes. He probably discusses politics with his friends. But the thing is, there are these kinds of people who are on the left or on the right, who are more I cannot say authoritarian. I can't say it. They prefer, like, not dictatorships, but the lower branch of that. I cannot say that word. And there are people who are more liberal. There is everybody on each side of the political spectrum. They are similar to the center, but slightly to the left, slightly to the top, slightly to the right, etc. But they can still discuss, and they can discuss with their friends in civil forms. But if you put a very, very heavy political stance in your games, these people will not want to buy your games and be pissed that some sort of message is being forced upon them. On the other hand, there is a great spot for games that can very easily exist and be appreciated by people who do actually want to play political games, because there are such people. There are plenty of people who would love to play games that show them exactly what they want to hear about politics. And again, it doesn't matter whether it's on left, right, top, or down. There are such people. But again, when it comes to mainstream games, that is a spot where politics should probably be avoided for the most part. Apart from almost universally accepted politics. Like Nazis were bad. Communists were bad. Those are things on which 90 to 95% of people can agree upon. Those are political stances you can very easily put into your game, because the market share you're alienating is teeny tiny. So I think because he's working for Ubisoft in a very, very high up position, he views gaming as mostly AAA and AA games. So obviously he knows about indie games, but still, his studio is also a producer of huge mainstream games. His studio cannot really take political stances. But indie games and even games from smaller studios that aren't part of his huge publishing conglomerate can very easily create political games. And honestly, you can make AA or even AAA political games if you are okay with alienating a specific part of the market. If you're targeting a specific audience with your game, and you're taking that into concern when you're thinking about how much money will your game actually earn. And sorry about that. My phone always rings whenever I'm doing this. I forgot to put it into airplane mode. So, in the end, I think there is a spot for political games. But if you choose to attempt to make a political game, you have to realize you're already limiting your potential demographic. And if you're okay with that, then go and make the best political game there ever was. But if your goal is to get as wide of a demographic, as many people as you can, and you don't care whether they're black, white, blue, whether they're young, old, whether they're highly educated, or they have a university degree and are currently designing the new particle accelerator, then you probably have to avoid politics, because you will never be able to put in politics that are universally agreed upon. And with that being said, that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Steam, maybe you want to give us an upvote and follow the blog. Either way, be sure to leave a comment and be sure to tune in tomorrow, because the Gaming Source series returns tomorrow. See you guys later with more gaming content.